AITA for wanting to cut my family out of my life? Advice needed. Basically, as the title states, I, 27M, want to allow my family to change, keep me in their life, or cut my father, mother, and sister out of my life forever. The reasoning behind this stems from my sister, 24F, becoming what I think is an incel with my parents, enabling her to avoid their toxic marital problems. Here's as much information as I can sort out in my head. Please ask for clarification if you feel it's needed to make a better judgment. Background: parents. My parents, now 46, F and 51 M, had a courthouse wedding after realizing they were pregnant with me. They never actually had a ceremony. Then I had my sister 3 years later after moving to be closer to my extended family. Despite this rather rough start, my early childhood was good up until around I was 11. It's also worth noting that it was quite obvious to me that my parents loved me and my sister, but not each other. My parents went out of their way to take me and my sister to Disney World on several occasions, enroll us in our favorite activities, and openly encourage our goals and dreams. However, the two of them would get into incredibly loud shouting matches with each other, of which I have vivid memories. There was one night when my parents were yelling in the hallway outside my and my sister's rooms. We were supposed to be sleeping for the night, but whenever these episodes happened, sleep didn't come for a while. Suddenly, my mother opened the door crying. She stammered, "Your father and I are getting a divorce," among other things that I didn't understand at the time. I then see my father show up, claim she's being ridiculous, slam the door shut, and resume the shouting match with my mother well into the night. Come morning, we went to school like normal, and this event was never addressed. The arguments would occur about 2 to 3 times a month until they simply ceased when I was around 15. Most of the topics ranged from my father being incongruent with his words and my mother gaslighting him either intentionally or unintentionally about literally anything. It's also worth noting that when I would come home from school and help make dinner, I would have several hour-long chats with my mother while she vented about their marital problems. I know this is incredibly inappropriate on so many levels in hindsight. Don't make your kids your therapist. At the time, I was just trying to understand what the hell was happening. At this point, I had taken notice of the happy pills, which I now know were antidepressants, my mom would take with her 3 to 4 glasses of wine a night, and the absence of my father for most of my high school tenure. My mother gained an excessive amount of weight for the next 12 years. I think she has to be over 350 lbs at this point. Whenever she is home, she curses like a sailor while drinking and is completely engulfed in employee drama fests or watching shitty reality drama shows. My father also gained weight and started and failed a business with money we didn't have while leveraging some debt under my mother's name without her knowledge or consent. Our whole family was dragged into trying to run the business and dealt with the aftermath of the bankruptcy. I still haven't forgiven him for that. However, he became pre-diabetic last year and did a 180 in the health department because of it. He lost weight, started lightly working out, and completely changed his diet. Much to my mother's chagrin, my father has both started and finished projects around my old home that my mother had started/left unfinished for over a decade. The house isn't even a cluttered disaster anymore. My mother does let him know that's not how she would have done things at every opportunity despite this. Other than that, Mom and Dad don't talk. My father has been saying for around 5 years that he'll talk to my mother about her weight, but he never has. This is their current dynamic. Background: sister and me. Back when I was 11 years old and my sister was 8 years old. In that environment, we didn't learn healthy conflict resolution. This led to many fights between us and arguments as we got older. It didn't help that we have dramatically different worldviews. I tend to lean towards you being responsible for everything in your life, sometimes to a fault, and she believes she's a victim of everything in her life. Both of these worldviews I can see are coping mechanisms for the environment we were raised in. It's sad. In school, we lead completely different lives and run in completely different circles. I know very little about what she even did in school. She just became angry at the whole world. At least, that's what it seemed. Trying to coax any sort of meaningful conversation out of her, or encourage her to grow in any way, was met with extreme bitterness and aggression that I could always see masking someone on the verge of crying. She did get her license and graduate high school, but got kicked out by my father at 17 because she didn't want to get a job and didn't want to go to college. I imagine there was something else, but that's all I know. She's never had a job, even up to today. He explicitly stated she wasn't allowed to move back in unless she had a job and was paying rent. I had moved out for the first time with a roommate while in college, working as a wedding DJ on weekends and private tutoring music lessons during the weekdays. Somehow, while I'm in college, she convinces my father to let her move back in with no job, and she doesn't have to pay rent. Mind you, She's had a car that my dad bought her and has been on my family's car and medical insurance this whole time. I should also point out that when I was still on the family plan and could see what was being spent, she was costing the plan about $7,000 a year on various tests because she believed she was too disabled in some way to work. This confused the hell out of me because what little I do know of her scholastic career involved her playing soccer and crushing it on C1 teams as a center defender. She also doesn't have any diagnosed mental disabilities that I'm aware of. But I wouldn't be surprised if she's depressed. Fast forward a year later, I'm out of college and want a speed run paying off my student debt. I move back home, so I pay $300 for rent and a little more for the electric because I have a music production console I'm using for work. I live at home for a while, and it's a silent hell. I've been there for 3 years because COVID made moving out again far more difficult than it had to be. I do pay off my debt and am paying rent to my family the whole time. My sister never gets a job, gains a ton of weight, drinks in her room while playing on her computer, or goes to hang out with friends on the weekend, who are all also 23/24ths, either never had or have dead-end fast food jobs and do drugs, and has a credit card to buy whatever with for my father. My mother will take her shopping for new clothes and plants for her hobby now and then. She's been taking college classes this whole time for a degree that keeps changing and is all online. It started as an English major to a geologist major with a few others mixed in there. I moved out 2 years ago to live by myself, and it's been fantastic. I finally have time to think in peace and have total control over my life and schedule as I mostly work for myself. I can work out when I want to, eat what I want, spend time with who I want to, and decorate my apartment the way I like. It wasn't until I had lived on my own for a while that I got a chance to feel the effects of what living under those conditions was doing to me. Now, whenever I go to the old house, I have to play down my accomplishments so I don't have to endure a negative barb from my sister. I have to pretend not to notice my mother's incredible weight and day drinking so I don't rock the boat. I also have to make sure never to point out my dad went back on his word with my sister by letting her live at the house, lest he start shouting at me. If I avoid those traps, they are quite pleasant to me. But I feel like I want to vomit every time I think about this situation. I know I'm not perfect. I fought a lot with my sister growing up and had episodes of angst. I've also almost gone down the incel rabbit hole during COVID with a bunch of old friends who still live at home and play FF14 all day. I no longer talk to them at all as I have goals and desires outside the computer screen. As an adult, I have spoken with my parents individually about what they are planning on doing with each other because they are not happy. I received apathetic responses from both. Part of what spurred this thought process into being was an unintended perk of my private tutoring job and DJ job. In the wedding industry, I got to see hundreds of happy couples with loving extended families celebrate with each other. I also got to see a few where the couple wasn't happy, or someone in the family didn't approve/wanted to make the wedding about them. With private tutoring, I've watched almost 100 different families raise children in different ways from poor, middle class, wealthy, Indian, American, Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, highly educated, young, old, etc. backgrounds into adulthood in some cases. I stuck with the core 15 or so families throughout the years. I've been tutoring since I was 19, and it's been amazing to watch a few of those kids grow up and go on to live their lives. I've become close with a few of the families, but I've never shared any of this story with anyone else. It's been a form of therapy I didn't know I needed, and my God, has it been incredible to be a part of. This means I now know what a healthy family looks and feels like in a variety of different forms, and am striving to become what I need to be to achieve that life. So, the reoccurring thought over the last year or so is this: I want to tell my family that they basically need to stop enabling my sister, and she has to move out or I won't be speaking to them anymore as I want no part in that life. If AITA for asking that, then what should I do? Thanks for watching the video. Please leave us a comment below with your thoughts and judgment. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories.